Come on in, have a seat at our table. And remember, real estate is crazy, and you don't have to be. Welcome to the Crazy Agent Dinner Party, where we dish on this crazy industry known as real estate. Here are your hostesses with the mostesses, with a combined 40 plus years in real estate. Coach, Conversion Courtney, and the real estate mom you never knew you needed, Amanda, the marketing mama. On today's menu, we're dishing up on how real estate, by its very nature, is a series of tiny catastrophes.
Amen. And thank you, Jenny, our wonderful and trusty sidekick. You know, we get it, agents. You do have a lot on your plate, which is why every week we want to gather together. You know, it's kind of part group therapy and part inspiration, but entirely for you real estate agents so that we can all sell more real estate and have way more fun doing it.
Yes. And real estate just is a bunch of just tiny catastrophes. And we don't have to react on them.
Well, you don't, because you've been doing it for 150 years. But I do find that the vast majority of agents will react as though, like the photo you've seen, their car burned down. That actually did happen to one of my agents. She was on her way to home inspection. That is a big catastrophe. That is an actual catastrophe. Like your car caught on fire. And what was so crazy about the phone call, I've been working with her since 2017, and she's just a wonderful, very, very diligent agent. And she was so funny because she was hyperventilating when I picked up the phone. And I'm kind of used to, like, you know how it goes, like when you help agents out, like sometimes they're a little spazzy. And I was expecting it to be something silly, like, somebody didn't show up for an appointment or something silly like that, But no, she's like, my car caught on fire. I'm like, oh my God, Michelle, are you okay? Like, you are a great real estate agent, but you're an even better person, and you don't need to feel badly about this. We will get the inspection covered, and let's move on with our lives. But I wanted to share that, especially on this, our very first episode, because I really do want to kind of lay it all out there and tell you the things that they never tell you in real estate school, which is, guys, real estate is and will always be, by its very nature, a perpetual series of tiny catastrophes, because in all transactions and even interactions, there's one huge variable. And what, pray tell, Courtney?
People. We're all people with all different personalities, all different upbringings.
Mm-hmm. So that makes it like infinite variables, right? Because no two people are alike, and no two situations are alike. And so, it's kind of like this, what I call the Chicken Little syndrome, where the sky is falling, the sky isn't falling. There's catastrophes that the sky is kind of falling, your car's on fire.
And she was like, how do I get there? How do I get to the inspection?
She really was.
I was calling Uber.
It's just a test. I mean, she really did. She said, can you come get me? I'm like, I will, but you're not going to that home inspection. But my point is let's talk about what I would consider tiny catastrophes. You got your basic home inspection gone awry, right? You've got a low appraisal. Jenny, hook it up. What do you got?
So seller needs to go out of town, can't make closing.
Which seems bizarre that would happen, right? Randomly, we've only known about this for
literally
like 30
happens
days. I know, right? Tiny catastrophe, but again, when you become accustomed to these things, what are some other things?
The seller hasn't moved out.
Oh, that almost is a bigger catastrophe than most. But like, how about this is one that I get often, because the agents will internalize it. Is they'll either get hung up on if they're doing like prospecting, which not every agent is comfortable doing, or maybe somebody won't show up, like what we call the ghost to an appointment. They seem to think that it's like they hate them. It's all their fault. And I'm like, well, let's just talk about like maybe they're a person, maybe they ran out of gas, maybe they have low blood sugar, maybe they die.
I actually have the perfect example for that, because I had an agent who did write a contract and sent it over to her buyer for signatures, and then the buyer just completely ghosted her. And I kept telling the agent, I was like, it's not about you. It's never about you. It's always about them, right? And that's my line. It's never about me. It's always about them. Mm-hmm. On that Monday, the buyer calls the agent and says, I am so sorry. I had to fly out to New York. My daughter was in a car accident. She's in ICU. Yeah. And so like that is like a perfect example of it's never about us. It's always about them.
Well, and there's one way I truly believe that you can prevent the car fire reaction to a regular day of real estate, and that is through my number one thing for combating tiny catastrophes is utilizing systems. right?
Absolutely.
And so, let's dig into the meat and potatoes.
Yeah, I think
of
like for
that.
me, I come up with these huge catastrophes because I'm so used to doing it for so long that the tiny catastrophes aren't that big of a deal anymore.
Exactly. So we'll get 3 quotes and we'll move on. Da, 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 da. Well, and it's so funny too. Like I have an agent who is literally younger than. He's 22, and you've been doing this for 24 years, and he will spend like a solid 45 minutes sort of spiraling, and like none of that stuff is happening right now. Like, you be present in the moment, and like, let's take some action steps to get a solution, to have options. And that's really what we're doing is we're data gatherers. We're getting information because, again, in his case, has a buyer who's buying a house that needs a lot of work. And I'm like, well, he knew that going into it. Like, you can tell that by the photos. So you just have to take the steps to know what you're doing and feel super confident about it. Like, obviously, you're not a home inspector. You're not a roofer. You're not a foundation expert, which in Florida, that is a little bit scary, honestly. But you guys have that in Colorado, right?
Yeah, we do too. It's bentonite.
Yeah.
Is our foundation. So like in the basements and stuff, it's clay.
Okay, so like red clay. So we're all sand here.
You are all sand.
We just basically like just the desert, but like I guess not the desert. We're more like the jungle, I guess. The Everglades.
So what kind of systems do you suggest putting in place to combat these tiny catastrophes?
Okay, so I'm just going to throw this out here. You need a system for literally every single facet of your business. So a system before you even start, a system for when you begin the new year, a system for your daily activities, a system for prospecting, a system for buyers that you know, a system for buyers that you don't know, a system for sellers, a system for when you're under contract, a system for after contract, for long-term nurture. You need a system for literally everything. You should be the Chick-fil-A of real estate agents, right? Like, you need to always have
when you say that, it sounds very overwhelming to like most people. It could sound overwhelming, right?
Yeah.
Although I believe that systems are critical to the success and just planning and stuff, because I think a lot of agents are in reactive mode. And so if they don't have those systems in place, then whatever comes up, they're just like react.
Right.
And if the systems are in place, then they stay away from hopefully the reaction mode, right, of what to do next.
Exactly. So here's the thing. Systems do take a little bit of time to set up because it's a system and you're not going to know it like off the top of your head. Think about anything in life that you've ever done, right? Like you were a baby, you did not immediately jump out of your mom and start walking, right? Like, you had to crawl. So it's going to take a little bit of time, but once you master it, like, for instance, did you ever work in a restaurant?
I did.
Okay. So I worked in restaurants a long time, and I remember like the first day that I worked at Bahama Breeze, which has this very extensive menu, and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to remember the menu, the specials, like the drink features. By like month 2, maybe I could do it upside down, backwards in my sleep, right? And so it's really about understanding your product, what you're doing, and then like confidently every day working on it. That's really the key to a system. But what is the number one thing most agents do? As reactionary Chicken Littles without a system, they just fly by the seat of their pants.
Yeah, and I always say, I love the way that you said confidence, right? And so like, I always say, just building those small wins builds confidence. And so just by following the systems, doing what we say we're going to do, and time after time after time again, then that builds confidence. So that for me, like, I need a big catastrophe for it to be like, okay, what's next, right?
Right.
Instead of the little catastrophes, because I'm so used to, I've built confidence to be able to handle those, that it's not even on my radar.
Exactly. Well, here's the reality. And this, okay, so everybody should know if you're watching this, the stat that is kind of a big deal. 87% of real estate agents get out of the business within their first 5 years. Pretty alarming. But not as alarming, in my opinion, to the very real, very current, very like holy smokes stat that 75% of active current real estate agents who buy and sell houses right now in today's market sell 5 or less homes a year. That is why they're freaking out, because they don't have, usually, again, you can actually sell 5 houses a year and make a pretty decent living. Don't get me wrong. But you're almost like, you don't really have
the wins, the
experience, the continuity. It's almost part-time, if you will. And that's okay. You can absolutely be a good agent and be part-time, but you have to have what I believe is the system in place to know whether you sell 5 homes a year or 5 homes a week, that it's the same thing over and over and over again, because what it does is systems create mastery in record time, but they open your mind up for other things like building relationships, right? And that's really what we're doing here, is we are building relationships to build our business over and over and over again. Do you agree?
Yeah, I was thinking as you say that is a lot of real estate agents will go like this, right? Mm-hmm. And because they will follow the systems, they'll prospect, mm-hmm. they'll get a bunch of deals, mm-hmm. and then they'll peak, and then it's like they stop prospecting,
right?
Because they run out of time. And so they're spending more time on the deals that they have under contract, mm-hmm. closings. And then so they take a dip, and then they start prospecting again. Right. And so they keep going like this, where systems are so critical just to, maybe we don't want it here, maybe we want it here, right? Mm-hmm. As long as you have those systems, then you can stay and maintain at this level.
Right.
And you've got to be committed to those systems and 100%. Not fall off. If you fall off, then you go right back down.
Because what tends to happen typically is emotion. We all know that when you spend a lot of money, which is usually what you're doing when you're investing in real estate, it makes you a little bit crazy. And so our consumers, even the sellers, not just the buyers, they get a little nuts about, like, it's high stress, high pressure. And so then they start to, imprint upon their agent, and then the agent kind of like takes on all of that stress and pressure, and then it makes them kind of crack because they're sort of just like, running by the seat of their pants, and they're not really focused on the data. And to me, data is our number one job as real estate agents. It's what delivers results, because what happens in real life when you make a decision based on emotion, like not a big one like buying a house, but in anything, like if you made a decision based on emotion, if you got like really pissed off or whatever, like what typically happens?
I mean, it goes wrong, right?
Bad stuff.
Bad things happen.
Very bad stuff over and over again. Like, we don't even do the statistics on that. Like, everybody knows if you make a heated decision, usually it is not a good one. So that is really understanding that as part of our job, understanding that that's like the biggest meat and potatoes of real estate, and then working through how to combat the tiny catastrophes and not react to them like it's a car fire, but be on fire for this ability every day to really help people and serve them, and understand like it's your total job to take all of the variables and lay them out in an organized fashion to provide the best service for the person, to know that they're investing wisely so that they're going to use you for that transaction and hopefully for the rest of their life or your life.
Can I chime in for 1 second?
Of course.
And ask you, so I'm a non-agent, so when you're talking about systems, that sounds a little vague to me. So is there, like, what's the best system, the best tool for you to use to actually combat this?
So in my opinion, I feel like real estate agents need to have, well, any entrepreneur really, you need to have a daily to-do list. You need to have that daily set of habits. It's not sexy at all, but it is very, very necessary, because that day in and day out grind of, again, the non-winning things. Most of our wins in real estate are not monetary, right? It's just getting up, doing the work, making the things happen, and guess what? Voila. Now you've got commissions, you've got closing or whatever. So I personally, for me, I think it's that daily checklist. How about for you?
Yeah, consistency, right? Mm-hmm. It's a daily checklist, consistency, doing the things that we say that we're going to do. Mm-hmm. And then I am passionate about having a CRM. I don't care what it is, Excel spreadsheet, contact management, right?
Yes, I was going to say, for those of you out there, whether... I would say that Post-it notes are not a CRM. I know I have so many agents. I'm like, it's crazy, like that they have this. Good for them, right? Like, it's just like one of my agents has like literally like a gajillion Post-it notes around her computer screen, and it makes me sweat. Like when I'm there with her, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know how you're doing this. But yeah, Excel spreadsheet. I mean, I ran a $30 million pipeline on an Excel spreadsheet like a ding dong, but because it was my security blanket, it's like what I knew, right?
What you know, right? Yeah. And if you're consistently working it, you consistently know what you're doing, then it's going to work. So I always say, like, I don't care what CRM management you use or anybody uses,
there's not one that's better than the other.
As long as somebody's using something, right?
We
like,
have to.
It's the old Rolodex, going through the Rolodex.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's not something we just came up with. It's something that's been used for a long time for anybody in sales.
Exactly. Well, and again, because if you don't have some sort of system for follow-up, then how do you know when to follow up? Because I don't even remember why I walked into the room, let alone who I called the past 2 days, right? And so you really do need to have, like, checks and balances every day. That's how you succeed, by measuring what you're doing. And that's why that checklist is important, because it keeps you on track and it keeps you in the right direction. So I think for our very first, every week we're gonna give you a nice little virtual to-go box that you can take with you and hopefully impart on your real estate life, and hopefully it's going to help you. I think we should give away my Millionaire Maker checklist this first time.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Okay, so
That's a great idea.
listen, and you can use whatever checklist you want, but this particular one I have literally used in 3 different markets and in 5 different phases of my career. And I've named it the Millionaire Maker Checklist because I've made $1 million using this checklist. But even if you don't want to make $1 million, it is a wonderful, wonderful outline for kind of how to go about your day.
I love it because it starts with like, where do you want to be? Mm-hmm. And so when I had my team, I was dumping leads into the team and buying leads. And then I sat down and I talked about lighting my money on fire. And I sat down and I talked to them, and I'm like, let's really dig deep on where you guys want to be. And it was a huge aha moment for me because it was like, one gal just wanted to make enough money to go back to Boston. Another gal wanted to do a couple deals a year. And here I am dumping leads into them to make to do a sales volume of 20 million.
Isn't that funny though, that like you had the team and then you learned, I feel, guess what, everybody, we're going to know this through this series together. Every single lesson that you learn in real estate, you learn the hard way. That is true. True or false, Ginger?
Yeah.
True, always. And here's what's so crazy, especially knowing that, you sell 5 or less homes a year. Not everybody, but that's kind of statistically everybody. So you might not have that happen again for 10 years if you're really thinking about it. So of course, it's just like bananas all the time.
For me, it was like wanting more for them than they wanted for themselves.
Yes, the number one thing I always do with agents that I take under my wing is I know what they want to make, because what they want to make
is
that's
the
their
first
success.
section of the checklist. Like where do you want to be?
Mm-hmm. Well, because what my version of success is different than theirs, and so I'm not going to crack the whip on somebody that wants to make 25 grand. I am going to be like, dude, you're like literally already there. So what's the next mountain that we're climbing? Or again, in 2 of my agents' cases, there are teachers, and so they just really wanted to supplement their income. And here we are in April, and they've already hit it. So
awesome.
That is awesome, right?
What would be one tip that you would give? Like, so if somebody were to walk away with something today, what would it be?
So the icing on the cake today. All right, so I'm going to talk about what I believe is a very tiny catastrophe, because I know every one of y'all, you have that little like moment when it happens to you. So how about this? The first time that you ever tell somebody that you are a real estate agent, what do they say to you?
How's the market?
Oh my God, how is the market? So, and as a real estate agent, what typically do you respond back with? Most of them are like, I don't know, squirrel, look, and then they run away or whatever.
Or the market's great, the market's bad.
It's a dump, like, oh, the rates are high, da 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 da. So
here's what I like to do.
Let's hear your tip. Conversion Courtney.
I love asking questions, and it's always not a yes and no. It's always an open-ended question. And so, if you ask me how the market is, May I? Can we do
a little role playing? Which, by the way, role playing practicing is on your daily checklist, because if you're not practicing, then you're going to be practicing on your clients. So, hey, I see that you have a name tag. You're a real estate agent. How's the market?
Are you a buyer or a seller?
Oh, I like to dabble in buying. I guess I would be an investor, maybe, if there's a good deal out there.
And so by asking questions, it helps me answer the questions, right? So it's like, are you a seller? That's a yes and no. Are you a buyer? That's yes and no. Are you an investor? Yes and no. So it's like, are you a buyer or seller? I'm an investor. So it's an open-ended question, and it allows me to get more information on how I'm going to answer.
I threw you like the hardest one. When they say they're an investor, then you're like,
then I stop and explain.
Yes. Like, are you going to hold? Are you going to flip? Like, what kind of investor are you? Are you looking for commercial? Are you looking for residential? No, that was a hard one. So how about I say, I'm thinking of selling my house, actually.
I'm okay with the investor.
Right. I know. It's just one of those toughies, right? Like, you're like, oh God, which...
And then so if you're interested, okay, great. It's an awesome opportunity for sellers right now. There's limited inventory, and really know the data in your area on how many homes are selling per month, how many homes are on the market. And to do that, it's important just to jump online every morning and just get an idea of where the market is, right?
And here's the key, guys, is that how's the market? Like, knowing your market is going to help you in every single part of your day as a real estate agent. So for instance, if you're working with buyers and they want to make a lowball offer in whatever neighborhood, you can give them the real data and not emotion. You can't take it personally that they want to offer something insane. You have to actually say, okay, well, if you just want to, waste some paper, da 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 da. Or how about this? This is what we're looking at. I've talked to the listing agent, this and that. You actually know the market, and then that way you're able to pass on the information to your people. Same thing with sellers. Like, how many sellers are like, oh, I'm going to list my house for $300,000 over the market value? Would you take that client?
I don't.
Me either. I'm like, I also want a unicorn, and that's also not going to happen. So
You do?
I do. Still.
You still want a
I'm like
unicorn?
perpetually 7 years old. Yeah, it's fine.
And so like the important thing is it's not about just posting it. I love these posts about here's the market data. What does that mean to me, right? Like, what does I see it and I'm like, what does that even mean to me? Like, go into detail. Like, what does this mean on the market? It's a market snapshot, right? And it's like, go into detail and know the market, really know and understand.
Such a valid point. And so this is exactly why we need to talk on, like, off the cuff like this. So your market, how's the market, should be based on your current customer base, right? Like, you need to have every buyer that you have, especially the mission critical, the 1 through 3 months, you need to have them on, like, a hot sheet. You need to know exactly what's buying and selling, where they want to buy and sell, right? And so to me, knowing the market of your current clients is how's them. That's your market, right? And if you don't have any, if you're farming, then you need to know how your farm area
Absolutely.
is or your niche area is. Is it niche or niche, Jenny?
Niche.
Niche. Okay.
We're French.
We're French.
We talk French.
Potato.
I love it. So, but isn't that valid, right? Because I think that when you say that, agents sort of like glaze over, but it really does have to pertain to the business that you're either currently doing or want to do. You need to know the market, because guess what? I have clients. I worked in Orlando for a long, long time, and I still work with a lot of those clients. I don't live in Orlando anymore. So obviously, for me to know the Orlando market for one of those clients, I would actually have to dig in. But I would only do that if I was working with somebody in that market. In my local market here in Volusia County, I know pretty much everything there is to know about Volusia. So I think it's really, really key to make that a part of your daily practice, because if you're not literally selling real estate, you should be studying it every single day. Do you agree?
I like that, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, how about we have a little last bite here, a little nugget that they can take away with them. When they're
A tip and a nugget?
A tip and a nugget. You're so funny. Just a chip, right, Jenny?
That's right.
All right. So a little nugget that you can take away from you is remember that systems are a really, really great way to achieve mastery in record time. But more importantly, they open your mind up for other things like building relationships, and most especially, they absolutely will combat those tiny catastrophes, because you got a checklist, you got a system, you got it down, and then that way you're almost like muscle memory moving on with the other things in your business. So as part, again, of our weekly virtual to-go box that we're going to give out to you guys for free, is we want you to have a look at my checklist, and let us know next week how your week progressed with that checklist, right?
Yeah, I think it'd be great, right? Because I would like to have them take away just that prepare ourselves so that we're not in reactive mode. And by having a checklist and following a checklist will keep us from being in that reactive mode.
Absolutely.
And building the confidence,
Yeah.
the small wins, building the confidence on a regular basis.
100%. I literally taped it to my desk, literally every single day until I never had to.
Got it.
And that's really what it boils down to, because you're not going to get used to it until you get used to it.
And this is a small win, right? Like when we talk about systems and all the systems that agents can put into place, like just start someplace, right? Just start.
Yeah. Every single day.
Yeah, and so we would love for you to have a seat at our table and send a video to us. Post below, send a video.
Whatever you want to talk about.
Whatever
Kind of
you
what are
want,
some of the
yeah.
things that are making you crazy, because I know it is. Because it's the nature of the beast is what we're trying to convey here. And that's why we want to be here as a resource that we can, again, like I said, come together, a little bit of group therapy, right? Hopefully a lot of inspiration, but again, entirely for all of us to sell more real estate and have way more fun doing it. And y'all remember, real estate is crazy.
And you don't have to be.